Okay, here's an idea for a better YouTube algorithm. One that uses Ngrams. Because right now we're using tags, and I assume a handful of other things, including viewership and what the comments contain. But really, if you want to know what the video is about, just listen to the words of the video, right? And so we have auto transcription services that we can already use, and YouTube may benefit from using those and then taking the Ngrams out of it or lemmatizing it. And let me explain what that is. Because I worked as a linguistics researcher a couple of years ago, and our project was to extract Ngrams. Ngrams, N is a number, gram is like a unit. So a gram, we'll say, is a word. So if I have a 1 gram, it's just every word that was in an article. If I have a 2 gram, it's 2 consecutive words. 3 gram, 3 consecutive words, or 4 gram, and so on. And so an example of that would be the cat chased the dog, right? And the 1 grams are the cat chased the dog. The 2 grams are the cat chased the dog. The 3 grams, the cat chased the dog, and so on and so forth. What's important here is that we learned through our research and others that you can basically fingerprint something. Like you get like a linguistic fingerprint of something based on the Ngrams that it uses. So the most common Ngrams in anything will be the same as the most common Ngrams in that language. So the, United States, those show up a ton in written work and in videos and everything else. But then we found out that if you remove those really common ones and you kind of adjust for things that are rarer but popular, like they're locally rare, we'll say, those are great identifiers of what type of thing you're looking at. So magazines will have one set, articles will have another, academic papers will have another, news, like TV will have one, spoken word will have one. And then you can break it down further, because it turns out that you can actually identify people based on the Ngrams that they use. And it's reasonably difficult to fake this, because you would literally have to change the way you speak. And the way you speak is a result of who you talk to, as well as the region you grew up in, and a handful of other factors. But it's hard to erase your linguistic footprint, or to alter it. You can't just like burn it off like your fingertips. So anyways, the point here is that a better algorithm would use the transcription of this, and then would take the Ngrams from the transcription and would be able to categorize based on essentially what Ngrams are showing up. So what's good about this is now you can see what's the topic that's being talked about in the video, because that topic will also have the same set of Ngrams, or a similar set, right? So you can use like a confidence interval of this looks 95% like this category, it looks 10% like this category, 5% like that, etc. And then it's also useful because you can break it down by opinion on the topic, right? So we've seen liberal versus conservative news sources use a different set of Ngrams when describing the same issues, which means that it's incredibly useful to determining what point of view the speaker has. It also helps you identify if there's overlap between 2 or more topics in a single statement, or if you're looking at a new topic. It's also good for detecting plagiarism, because while you can change some words, you cannot fundamentally change the entire written thing without having to rewrite the whole thing. Like the phraseology of it is very important, which means you can crack down on people who are copying videos. But it's also good for helping things like memes. If a meme is very common or popular, you can have it show up very easily because you'll get the exact match to the Ngram. Now the other side of this is lemmatization. Lemmas remove all of the things that essentially place a word in the context of a sentence. So instead of me saying jumping, the lemma would just be jump. It would be the verb. Instead of nominalization, it may just be nominalize or nominal, or nomen, like the word for noun in Latin. So you have like all of these different ways to break down. And what it means is that things that are like used in so many different contexts. For example, the word not, right, appears in don't and won't, but it doesn't look like the word not. But if we lemmatize it, then we can see that not is significantly more popular than it would look without lemmatization, and it helps us figure out what words are being used, which means that if someone is talking about, something critical, when they say criticality or critic or criticalization, they all show up as flags, and so you can match things by lemmas. And what it turns out, I would assume, is that lemmas wind up being very good for identifying tags, so shorter words or phrases that are very specific to a topic. And the other option would be without lemmatization in Ngrams. Without lemmatization in Ngrams, you wind up being able to identify exact phrases, which means that if someone searches, how do I do this, you get fairly similar results. There's also such a thing as mutual association scores, and that basically tells you how related two phrases are, or two sets of things in Ngram. But the thing is, the Ngrams don't have to be consecutive. So you can have an instance where you have one Ngram, and then 3 sentences later you have another Ngram, and it doesn't matter the space between them. You're looking for how associated are they? How likely are these two things to show up in the same article? For example, like climate change and global warming would have a fairly high association score, but maybe climate change and purple ice cream do not. So you're able to identify things that are related and kind of link this whole, link a bunch of topics without implicitly having to define that they are related. So ultimately, as maybe a love letter to YouTube, I don't even know, just use this for your algorithm, because it would make it a heck of a lot easier for people to find what they're looking for. And you can use all of the YouTube data that currently exists, all the tags that are out there, to help identify what to train your data on, what your Ngrams should currently look like. And then going forward, you have some sort of recursive algorithm that sort of plots the trajectory in like a gradient descent model to help you find exactly what you're looking for. But the point is, like, we use AI to some degree to solve this problem of how do I find what I'm looking for, but we use it in possibly ineffective ways. One major thing that I learned while coding is that most of what you're doing is rote work. There is not a whole lot of specialization involved in a task that is well defined. So you really only need AI at the beginning, from my perspective, when you don't have a well-defined task, such as searching for something completely random that doesn't have a lot of ways to identify it. But it turns out all these things do have a good way to identify them, so long as they contain words. And music may be another thing, but you can also find musical motifs, which means that people who like a certain type of music are more likely to find those same kinds of musical Ngrams by notes that appear in a pattern, notes that appear at different length and different tempos. They start to look the same, because if you lemmatize music, you're removing the uniqueness, we'll say. Like if someone sped it up, slowed it down, if someone changed what key the notes were in, these are all now removed, because you can just look at the pattern. Do the notes go up or down by a fifth, by a third? What is it? You know, how quick is it? And so these kinds of things are very good for identifying even sounds. If you look for a rocket taking off, you don't even need any words in the video. There's a pretty good sound identification, a sound fingerprint, if you will. Just like there's a chemical fingerprint for different elements, or light fingerprint. I mean, you can use this for virtually everything. It's a concept of Ngrams and lemmatization, where you remove contextual elements, use them as tags to get your general topic, and then you get opinions, stances, and subtopic based on the Ngrams themselves. So, YouTube, for the love of God, please implement this. It would be very helpful for all of us to find both what we're looking for, determine what's popular, and ultimately for creators to actually get this stuff out there fairly easily. It should not be that we're having to compete for marketing and you don't have a marketing team, because the whole point of the advancement of technology is to make things easier for the most part. And one of the things that should be made easier is accessibility to the public. YouTube takes the concept of needing a record label to produce a song and reduces it to you can be anybody and produce a song, then it should be truly anybody. It should not necessarily be the person who has to have 15 different skills of editing and producing and marketing and budgeting. Because theoretically, if the skill is the song that you're looking for and the ability to connect it with others who have these skills, then the root of it is to have an algorithm that's optimized to find things, spread them, and then look for partnerships rather than the other way around. So that's my take. But yeah, seriously, Ngrams would help a ton. I've recommended this before to another software maker who reviews resumes, and they've used it. It's now used in a lab in Germany. I mean, it's a pretty useful concept, and it does seem to be quite useful going forward in terms of general identification for search algorithms, as well as academic research, second language apprehension. It's all across the board. So yeah, Ngrams for the win. See you guys in the next one.